All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the AMA here with Wizardia and Satoshiverse. It's really exciting to see you guys, and I'm really excited to be able to bring two incredible projects together and have a chat about some particular spaces in our play-to-earn world. But to get things started, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, Nick, and Satoshiverse. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about your project.
Absolutely, and thank you all for having me. Really, really great to be here with all of you. Awesome project you guys are building yourselves. So my name is Nick. I am the founder of Satoshiverse, one of the six founders, and I am the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the studio and production company building Satoshiverse. We've been building Satoshiverse for we're coming up on 2 years now since Satoshi, the creator, was created. So about to celebrate an anniversary for that, but been building the game for about a year. We are a predominantly U.S. and Colombian-based studio, so we have the vast majority of our artists are based in our Colombia office, and then we have some of our team in the U.S. and Canada. I've been in the NFT space since 2017. Very passionate about what this technology potentially brings to the space. I was a lawyer in the entertainment industry before that, so come from an IP background and really excited about what this could be. I'm also, my grandfather is Jose Delbo, so a popular comic artist in the space, and so I've got to kind of experience the space through both the collector side and that side of things, and also help Jose kind of develop into the artist he's become within the space after working for DC and Marvel for 60 years. So that's all been super exciting. But now what we're building is the Satoshiverse, and so the Satoshiverse. When we think about what the verse means, we're looking at trying to build the next kind of great comic superhero IP for the blockchain universe, right? So you have the MCU, you have the DC universe. Those are obviously not blockchain themed. We are building a superhero universe around the theme of blockchain and kind of the inspiration of some of the kind of dystopian tales that we tell as cautionary tales within the blockchain space for why the blockchain technology and Bitcoin and whatnot are important and could potentially, if we don't have them, integrated within society, lead to some of these issues that I think a lot of people are fearful of and that we're seeing to some extent within our current society. And so the Satoshiverse, at least our current lore, stems from a lot of real life events. We have the creation of Bitcoin by Satoshi and kind of the evolution of blockchain technology. We have the pandemic, which we put our own spin on as this manufactured event by kind of the bourgeoisie of society who wants to retake power. They overthrow the governments, and then Satoshi, after being gone for 10 years, reemerges as a superhero to lead a rebellion against these people. And so that's kind of the core of the story. But what we're building now is kind of the present day extension of that story, which is our Satoshi's Legions Play and Earn game, which is going to be a action RPG roguelike hybrid. So it's going to have some elements of an action RPG and some elements of a roguelike, like Hades. I think is a popular example of a roguelike. But we're really thinking through what is an interesting form of both presenting a story through the game, but also presenting a game that's fun to play every time you play it. And so we thought the RPG roguelike hybrid could be a really interesting way of doing all of those things. And so
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's something that we've definitely worked on here at Wizardia as well, is making sure that our game is fun. It is something that does get missed quite a lot in the crypto world, and it's great to bring projects like us together that are definitely focusing on that aspect. And something that we're quite big on at Wizardia, as well as you guys over at the Satoshiverse, is the lore behind things. So before we go right down that track, anyone that isn't aware of Mind or Vytis, I'd like you guys to give yourself a quick intro and Vytis, tell us why lore is so important to you here at Wizardia.
So I'll be next with the intro. Mind, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Mind, the CEO of Wizardia, and also a newly found fan of Satoshiverse. So yeah, I guess you guys all seen me. Some of you chatted with me somewhere. So glad to see you here again, and hopefully this is gonna be something different and something interesting for every one of you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Vytis. The mind behind lore of Wizardia. Yeah, so why lore is important? I would approach the question slightly different. Why lore is interesting? I think games as a media is pretty new. Like, I don't think the game as a media is pretty new, and we haven't yet explored every way we could involve other people into the fantasy worlds of our creation. And lore is just like representation of what we imagine some fantasy could be. And Satoshiverse, as I understood, are making this spin-off of reality and spin-off of existing events. Wizardia is kind of the same, at least in my mind. I spin off stuff in Wizardia's universe based on real events or real experiences that I happen to encounter in my life. Just the time scale is slightly different. Satoshiverse went with, near future, and we kind of plopped 1,000 years here and there to get a little bit more artistic freedom, I guess, and to also we threw physics out of the roof of the room. So yeah, that also makes a bit more like or allows a bit more freedom in creation for us.
I absolutely love being able to hear about the lore when you guys talk about it. For me, as a a viewer, I'm extremely captivated by it, and I hope everyone loves the introduction there and has learned a little bit more about Wizardia lore, and of course are now introduced to the Satoshiverse. So from here, I'd just like to remind everybody we do have a 30% off discount on our NFTs at Wizardia. The discounts are in the links below, so make sure to head over, take a look. We've also got all the Wizardia links as well as Satoshiverse, so you can easily check us out. But to really get into the lore, Nick, can you maybe run us through a little bit about your inspiration for the lore and the impact it has on gameplay?
Yeah, so I think our inspiration, like I was saying before, was very much inspired by real life events. When I first got started in the blockchain space, I was like everybody else doing my research, trying to learn a little bit more about the technology and understand kind of the roots of the story. And there was this character, right, Satoshi, who builds this technology that everyone within the space thinks is going to change the world, and then he goes and disappears and no one sees him anywhere, ever again. And I think to me that just coming from this, like growing up as a huge fan of superheroes and it just sounded like either a superhero or a supervillain, right? And we went with superhero, and we kind of filled the gap of where Satoshi went, why he left, right? We put in those reasons that while Satoshi knew that he had created a technology that was going to be kind of earth-changing, he knew that that was also going to inspire this resistance from the traditional institutions that didn't want to see it succeed, and knew that eventually those institutions would win out, and that the only way to fight back would be through coming and establishing even more powerful technology to give the people a chance in fighting back against this institutions and that would take over. And so the idea is Satoshi kind of disappears and builds out this technology that then allows people all around the world to participate in this battle remotely. And so one of the things that our current lore on the website doesn't get into is how the game essentially, which is set kind of in the future, but our present day, right? So like all the lore gets you up to the game, and then you're kind of the idea is that you are writing the lore essentially as you play. So the whether or not there's not going to be a scripted end to finish, it's you are fighting to try to take back what's yours, and you're part of this rebellion, and that's going to evolve as you play the game. And I think that, you know, what we're trying to achieve there is that we want to make people not just feel like they're playing a game, but because it's so rooted in real life themes and things that could very well exist, we want to make people feel like the game is actually something that they're part of, right? That they're commanding their, you know, army and their legionnaires from their actual computer. That theoretically, in an alternate universe, they could be doing exactly the same thing and actually doing this in real life. And so that's been kind of an interesting meta that we've been playing with, but that's very much been our lore inspiring the gameplay.
There's actually some really exciting things that you mentioned that really kind of twigged on my mind that I'd actually like to relay over to Vytis. I know, Nick, you just said Earth changing, it's set in the future, there's battles, and Satoshi obviously being the one coming back. There's a lot of things there that remind me of Wizardia. So tell me, Vytis, do you think there could be any future for inter-project lore? Could we ever see Satoshi in Wizardia or vice versa?
Is Satoshi a wizard? What?
It depends on Satoshi's lifespan, I guess. But I want to touch on other things. I'll return to your question a bit later. Like, I think our law direction is very similar. In Wizardia, we also create the playground for players instead of us to create what will happen out of Wizardia. Like what will happen with characters in it, what will happen with the world that eventually the players will inhabit. And this was, at least in my little handbook, the primary goal of the world that I'm building, to allow other people just enter it and make their own fantasies within limited set of constraints. Now, regarding Satoshi being a wizard, I have two problems about that. One is naming conflict. Apparently, Satoshi is named the creator, and this is a bit sneak peek. We already have a wizard in the pipeline who has the title or suffix the creator. So, yeah, there is a naming conflict.
But you never know what names are gonna mean in 1,000 years, you know.
Who knows?
Yeah, so
the creator in Wizardia could be the grandson of Satoshi 100 years later or a few thousand years later.
technically, that is possible. That is possible. Entirely possible, yeah. But yeah, for now, we can't, integrate directly. However, as we are, as I said, 1,000 years apart, there is a lot that could have happened in the past of Wizardia. And we're kind of retroactively creating some of the bits that have happened or fixing some of the events in the past. But they're not all there. Plus, the economy collapse of one way or another did happen in Wizardia's past. So we can attach you here.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited by that, and I think it's good to get your whole input on that. I'd love to see the crossover, but like you said, there are many difficulties. But I could see quite a huge grin on Mind's face as you're speaking, and maybe you can share a bit on your thoughts as well, Mind.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm becoming a fan of the project of Satoshiverse as well. I took a look and it kind of sparked the same joy that Wizardia sparked, especially in the beginning when we were creating it all and thinking about all these crazy ideas. And then I read some of Vytis stories. We wrote some poems about it as well. So there's some really nice creative bits that are, still somewhere in our handbooks and they're not out there, but all these things where you can see something that you grew up with, actually. You remember all the old movies like Blade Runner and whatever games you played. We mentioned Hades as well, so it has all the historic stuff there. It's a great example of telling the antique myths with a game, right? So here we have just a collection of all those things, and this is what I love. I love dystopian stuff. I love the freedom and chaos that it brings, and there's a lot to build there. So it's hard to to ruin it, but it's very easy to overlook very important things. So that's why I'm really happy to have these guys together with me and then listen to them talk now, because they are the guys that generate the ideas, they create these stories, and they make things connect logically. And that's why I was smiling, because I can see both projects are very similar but also very different at the same time. The timeline is different, but I can see behind Nick there's like a market there, and I remember we recently introduced our market, the concept of it, and introduced the market NFT, and this market stall, how you call it, in our images was kind of similar, also like some neons there, and then some lighting, some stuff there. I don't really see all the details, but I imagine this is pretty similar. So that's very nice when you have things that you recognize and you expect to see, but also they surprise you in a way. So it's very easy to talk now when it's just fantasy around, but I'm super excited to see what both projects will have in the future.
Absolutely. Well, everyone definitely needs to stay tuned for any possible crossovers and just general further development of the projects. They're coming along very, very quickly. I understand with Wizardia, we've got some pretty big news coming up after this one with our mystery box, and a few more game modes being released. And as for Satoshiverse, alpha version being released in December. So definitely tune in to see what's coming, because it's going to be super exciting. But something I'd like to talk to Nick about and kind of get your opinion on is gaming as a means of storytelling. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more on how Satoshiverse has incorporated storytelling into the metaverse.
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of grew up on games that were rich in story, right? You had Diablo, to me, which I thought was an interesting game because there was a very well developed story. There were a million ways you could take it, and if you didn't talk to everybody, you didn't even get into like 80% of the story. And it's funny because I think a lot of people played that game and just cut through every bit of the story and didn't really dive in, but it was so rich, so deep in every angle you go. World of Warcraft is another one. I think a lot of Final Fantasy. I think there's some really great RPGs that do a good job of storytelling and really use things like quests. And I even remember when I was a kid playing Age of Empires and learning a lot of ancient history through the video game because you were going on a story as Joan of Arc. So I think that there's an incredible opportunity as storytellers to incorporate storytelling elements in our games. I think that in Web3, we have some unique opportunities through kind of the ownership layer and some of the kind of interactivity points we have with our community to really make that story more meaningful and mold that story a little bit to their particular experience, because we can work with data in ways that we may not have been able to before, at least a little bit differently. And so I think storytelling generally is going to be a huge part of what we're doing, but I think also what a lot of games are going to be incorporating. I think one other thing that we're going to see, not just with gaming, but the metaverse and just VR and AR, is that people are, there's something to reading, right? There's something to watching a movie. There's something to watching a TV show that's right there for you. But I think that we have the opportunity now, even outside the Web3 space, to just create such immersive experiences for people, whether it's VR experiences, whether it's gaming, that takes storytelling a step further from watching the story to actually participating in it and molding it and being part of the story. And I think creating that sensation is something that we're trying to do through a few different ways in which we're casting our story. But I think generally that's what really excites me about the kind of the potential. I'm a big nerd on VR and AR, and I love to see just uses of storytelling, because the comic industry was really, really suffering when it was just comic books, and that's kind of where we came from. And once those movies came out, it kind of revolutionized the comic industry. And now these different mediums are just a step to take that to the next level and see where we can go with comic book art and fantasy and all the things we could potentially live out within these immersive worlds.
Yeah, totally agree. It's the immersibility aspect, and something that really does need to be the focus of Play to Earn a little bit more is building a bit of lore, some backgrounds, giving a reason for players to get involved, and more importantly, stay involved. But what's your take on that, Vytis? Why do you think storytelling and lore is so important to the entire Play to Earn space?
Yeah, first, I think story and lore is just interesting. And it's not only the Play-to-Earn space. Every medium where we do storytelling has to be at least by some part interactive. I will answer this question like this. Any given story is interesting only by our understanding how we are part of that story. So if we read a story which has no connection with us, the story seems to be dull to a person that reads it. Mm-hmm. If we bind that connection, if we make that connection, suddenly we're involved in the story happening. Games or interactive mediums have the opportunity to actually take feedback from the person who's involved in the story and put that feedback back into the story creation loop and spit out something new. I'm actually very obsessed with games which allow this kind of back and forth between the player and the game engine. And weirdest example of that would be a game called Dwarf Fortress, which basically revolves around computer generating stories and you, the player, interpreting the things that are happening on the screen. There are other which are basically clones of the same approach. And we are on the other side of the spectrum. Instead of going for single player, we're going for a very slow multiplayer approach, something like EVE Online, where a huge, sizable amount of people are delivering their input into the game and making a story collaboratively. And like, I'm here just to make the world where the story happens. And my job is to make players to feel as if they, not as if, but feel empowered to make the story happen. And the stories that the players make, for us, at least in Wizardia, will be the stories that make us happy, make us, those stories are our target, the stories that the players make. And I think this is a unique situation that we have now with the, appearance of augmented reality. That would be the first step, where we can actually involve players in something that they can have a lower, stepping stone to enter the universe in. Like in the previous times, you had to read and to imagine, and now you have this stepping stone lowered that you can just delve in to see what other people are being up to and what they're doing, and their interactions are part of the story. And we'll see how that goes with Wizardia. We do have plans about artificial reality or augmented reality, and we haven't talked about them too much. We're keeping a bit of a secret from that side. But yeah, that's part of our collaborative storytelling experience that we have in the making, or at least in the planning for now.
Well, it's fantastic to hear a little bit more from the person who kind of created the whole world for Wizardia, and obviously Satoshiverse there with Nick. And it's really exciting to hear how important lore is to you guys, because very similar to Nick, I love superhero movies, and I absolutely love the dark sci-fi with Wizardia. So to hear a bit more about what you guys are thinking about when you create these worlds, it's great to learn. But I'd actually like to discuss a bit about the gameplay as well. Obviously, with Satoshiverse coming out in December, and Wizardia's alpha is already released, I've heard from Mind a few similarities between our games already. Perhaps you can mention any differences that you know, or just something that might stand out different between Wizardia and Satoshiverse.
When I looked at Satoshiverse, So the first thing that actually caught my eye was that it looks in a way similar, in the graphics, and then the idea, and with all the cities that we see ruined in Wizardia, they might be coming from there. And then I tried to take a look a bit about the game. So I saw the trailer. So I hope everybody who's watching here will also take a look. It's right there on the website. You can see this dramatic battle going on there, and I really want to see the gameplay itself, like when you try it out. But it seems very dynamic, and it seems there's a lot of control over the character. Like you mentioned Hades, it has a top down, and here we have a 3D view, so it's more of a first person third person type of game where you move around and you tackle all different kinds of obstacles. Of course, I believe when it comes out and it evolves, it might become something totally different with similar concept. That's what we felt at first. You have one idea, then you go through 5 other ideas, and you return to the first one, or you completely change it. So the main difference is that it's like a third person view, and we have a top down view. We have a turn-based combat arena, which is currently out. Our whole vision is to build the whole game from different elements. So it's like base building mode, where you kind of build some buildings, you invent something, you craft something, you connect something, you summon something. So all these things that are coming there, and will give much more meaning to the arena that we currently have. It will make much more sense to why the wizards are fighting, what are they fighting for. So everybody should understand that we're in a pretty early stage, even though the game is already live. And in Satoshiverse, I would love to see what comes after, and what game modes come around later. What kind of crafting things are there, what kind of like tournaments, or what kind of competitive events are there. So we have big plans over there too. So I think in a way of structure, the games are sort of similar, even though it's a completely different genre of the game. But the setting is, more or less something that you can already see behind Nick, and behind me, and on our websites. So you can make all those judgments for yourself. But what for me was the main thing that I loved about is the samurai theme, which one of the first designs that I took a look from our lead artist portfolio was like this cyber samurai that he had made, and it was the first thing that I kind of remembered, and this is how we selected him. I saw that samurai picture, and I thought, man, this guy can draw, and then he started doing artwork for us, and I think we even have one of the versions of that samurai. I think I can find it, and we can show it later on, so we can see what Nick thinks about it. So yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. And same question to you, Nick. Similarities and differences between the two universes.
Yeah, I mean, similarities. I think I think both projects are very much focused on the quality of the assets and the experience. I think that we obviously have some lore similarities and that cyberpunk, but I think that what we're seeing now is kind of the evolution of projects who have been spending years building their games, releasing higher quality experiences, right? Where we're using the best of technology. I think you guys are using Unity, we're using Unreal Engine to really start to push not just the DeFi farm games, which I think is what we've seen for the last year, but actual games with high quality graphics and gameplay and VFX and sounds and scoring for music. I think I think we both are really focused on making people feel like they're playing a game that's up there in quality with anything they've played before. I think that in terms of differences, yeah, I think the turn-based versus kind of our game plays a little bit more like if you've played The Witcher or God of War, you're in that somewhat zoomed out third-person view. It's combat, it's action, it's you're fighting constantly. It's 3D environments that are interactive. I think I love turn-based games personally, and I love to see high-quality turn-based games. I think when you have a turn-based game, so much more work goes into the actual strategy and the thought of, like you have a lot more time to drill down into strategy elements. Whereas with these, more zoomed out third person action games, I think it's more about your skill of actually just playing the game, tactile skills versus, strategic skills. And I think obviously there's a certain amount of strategy in both, but they cater to somewhat different audiences, right? Some people love first person shooters, some people love playing sports games. So I think, from that element, they're very different, at least in their current conception. However, I think, both present really interesting, things for users. And I think that the key is that we're both spending a lot of time building a really high quality experience. I think that's the key.
100%.
I just have one question. When I watched again the trailer right now when you were talking and kind of immersing myself with your words and the views that I saw, and I see all these slices with the katana or the sword, whatever you call it. I don't know all the names for it. I'm sorry, but do you have in mind like some blood and gore and decapitation and stuff like that, or how violent is the graphics gonna be? Because it seems
So
like intuitively you would like that person to be cut in half.
yeah, so we don't have the violence in there yet. I think it's something that we could theoretically scale up. I think that we want to keep it fairly accessible, and I think there's going to be enough, issues with marketplaces and places trying to get your game placed in the future without all that stuff, just as a blockchain game. So I think, there's reasons, just I think accessibility reasons to not have it be too crazy, but we are catering to an adult audience. I think that this space is predominantly adults, or at least it should be, in terms of investing and spending crypto. So we do have somewhat adult elements. I think that in the future, some of those VFX is something that we would definitely incorporate, and I think it would be super cool. I think we'd probably stop short of heads rolling around and blood shooting out everywhere, but I think more than just a stab and a guy going down will eventually be where we land. As we said, we're early. One thing I did want to mention really quickly is that obviously we have that trailer that kind of shows just a very small snippet, but what we've been doing every 2 weeks is actually we do a Twitch stream where we play through our latest version of the prototype. And so, like, especially from a game developer's point of view, you can kind of see how raw everything is behind the scenes. So we've tried to be very transparent with where the game is, how it's progressing, what it'll actually look like. And so, we publish those on our Twitter and on YouTube. And you can actually watch. We get in there for an hour and we say, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we're at 2 weeks ago. This is where we're at 2 weeks from now. And the idea is to constantly be building. Obviously, there's a balance between, we don't want to spoil things. Like, we want that first gameplay experience to be new and exciting, but we want to show people, we're showing people how the game is being built, right? And I think that that's a unique experience for people.
Well, it's all part of building in the bear market, and being able to show progression, I think, is absolutely detrimental nowadays more than ever. And during the time we're talking now, we did get the image of our samurai wizard, and we can share that one now, and you can let us know, what do you think? I'm just about
Drum
to
roll.
Here it is.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. I love it.
It's very gangster, if I don't say so.
Yeah, I mean, something like that could pop out of Satoshi's printer. That something like that could fit within our world as well. I think there's a lot of similarity, especially in the character design. There's some really cool stuff that you guys are doing that lines up a lot with what we're doing. That's awesome. That's a really cool looking samurai wizard.
Well, we appreciate the feedback there, and something I'm actually curious about, and I think yeah, our opposing audiences here would like to know as well, is what we can expect from Satoshiverse in regards to actual gameplay. As we've mentioned, we've only been able to see that short snippet. I've not caught anything on Twitch, but run us through the aspects of the game, the purpose, and what the main objective of Satoshiverse would be.
Sure. So from a lore perspective, the game is called Satoshi's Legions: The Battle for the Outskirts. So this first iteration of the game, the rebellion has begun. Satoshi is leading the rebellion. The defenders of Fiat have enlisted the services of gangs to patrol the outskirts, which is the area that the people have been essentially relegated to that don't agree with the new kind of hierarchies views. So they're relegated to the outskirts. And now they've heard about this rebellion, so they've enlisted these brutal gangs to try to squash the rebellion. So the gameplay is going through the outskirts, finding these gang members, killing the gang members, finding the gang leaders, killing the gang leaders, and ultimately playing through to the end boss of the defenders of Fiat, who are also present within these outskirts territories. So really, the first iteration of the game is protecting the outskirts from this invasion that the defenders of Fiat are trying to kind of quash the rebellion before it starts. And so the gameplay loop itself is you're essentially piloting your avatar in a third person view. You're fighting. It's fast paced. It's action. You're casting abilities. You're hack and slashing your way through. You're unlocking doors. You're disabling drones. You're doing a lot of that stuff. But all the while, you're gaining experience. You're finding items. So those are the RPG components. So you'll have that RPG element where your character's progressively going to get stronger. You're going to gain experience. You're going to get new items. You're going to be able to craft items. You're going to be able to do different things with upgrading your items. You're going to be able to earn different NFTs and resources that then make your character stronger. But on the other side of it, which I think makes it somewhat unique, is that we're using more of a roguelike mechanism. So every time that you play the run, you'll begin from the beginning of the run. And so Hades is a good example of a roguelike game. And the idea is that each run you can get a little bit further into the outskirts, into the maze and clearing it. And when you die, you essentially go back to square one, and we have lore elements that explain that. But the idea is you progressively get stronger, you progressively get deeper, and we're using programmatic generation for our map so that every time you play the game, the map is going to be different. So there's no playthrough that you just remember, okay, I have to run through this, and this. Every path is different. So it feels like you're essentially clearing different parts of the outskirts every time you play, because the environments change every time you play through our AI. And I think that's going to be, it's a unique experience, but it's also something that's doable for us. I think, if we tried to build the next Diablo, it would take us 4 years. And so like balancing the RPG elements with a roguelike, which is a type of mechanism that you can build over time. I think Hades released their first version of their game, after a year of building, and then released a new version every 6 months or something like that for 4 years. And after 4 years, the full game, which won, tons of awards, was built, but it was an iterative process with their community. And we're seeking to have the same thing for our game.
Fantastic. And I know we are starting to run short on time now as well, but I do have a couple more questions to run out there that we can chat about first. And that's just the other side of the coin and Wizardia and the main objective behind playing as a gamer. If you can run us through that, Mind.
Main objective, as in any sport or any game, probably is to dominate, right? But the goal of it would still be have fun while doing so. We try to use this slogan when we were also like pitching to investors, and when we try to imagine, for us, when we analyze the market and looked at other games, what they're doing. So they felt more of a click-to-earn games than rather than play-to-earn. And we would really love to bring that play factor into our world, and that's what it's all about. It's definitely not a game for everyone. I wish everyone would try it though, but I know not everyone will like it. It's like enjoying milk or Coca-Cola or whatever. Somebody prefers Pepsi or it's just in preference wise. Yeah, but for people who really will start playing, I think what they will feel, especially when the full game comes out, is that battling is only one way to play it, right? Because we have all these passive earning aspects. You can play almost economy simulator. You can, breed wizards. You can be, like a rancher of wizards, right? You can use your wizards collection to summon other wizards and then trade them. You can uh, get deeper into the lore. So when the more of a single player mode comes out, then you can maybe experience lore in the game more than just reading it on the website. So all of these things combined, I think, will bring you to finding your own way how to play Wizardia. But for the most competitive ones, is definitely going to be the domination to becoming of like the Grand Wizard or whatever title we come up with, and just find the ultimate strategy. You see, Ryan, already in our current alpha tournaments, we have this competitiveness around, and some people are playing over 1,000 of games in one tournament just to reach that high score, and beat everyone. And I think this is one of the things that game is about. It's not only about enjoying, but getting good at it and enjoying that part of things. So I think everyone will find a way to enjoy it. And I'm still looking to find mine, because it's still hard to imagine when and then how we will reach the full potential. But as we build through it, I think we will experience all the aspects of the game. As Nick mentioned, Hades, I was following the project also for a long time, and I was holding my fist from pressing buy until the game fully came out, and I took a controller and I really enjoyed it, and played for a whole week. Little sleep, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm a fan of Greek mythology as well. So for me, it was a double win. So I found lots of things on how to enjoy that game. So I think that's the thing with our game. Everyone will find their way.
Fantastic. Well, I think that brings us to a close on our time together. I would have loved to have been able to delve into this a lot more and get a lot
Let's
more
do
of
it
it.
again. Let's do it again, Ryan.
Exactly. We'll have to get this arranged for another one. But yeah, Nick, thank you very much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to speak with you, learn more about the Satoshiverse. And to give everyone a reminder, we will have more collaborations, one on Twitter coming up soon. Here at Wizardia, we do have a 30% off all NFTs discount for the next 24 hours. So make sure to check that out in the links, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Vytis. Thank you, everyone. Bye.